9 years, 5 months, and counting. Janet Green and her sister, Felicia Steverson, are waiting. And as they clear debris,
oh man, there's a old piece of iron.
Memories of their dad appear.
Wow, from the junkyard.
That junkyard, or salvage yard, some would say, is where Elsie Burrows turned other people's trash into treasure. The father and grandfather went missing in September of 2013 from the very place he found joy, at home fixing cars. It was a business that became lucrative.
He had people coming from all counties: Jenkins, Emanuel, Burke, Scriven, Bullock, Richmond, you name it.
But long before his success in the Butts community of Jenkins County, his happy place was in the kitchen.
The first memory of my dad was we were very little and we lived in Brooklyn, New York, and him cooking breakfast for us.
Sometimes on Saturdays he would get us and take us to the restaurant, and he had a key to the restaurant, and they would prepare these big soups and things in these big giant pots.
That life was in New York at an upscale restaurant near Wall Street called Michael One. Glasses, matches, all still part of the family's collection. The Burroughs family would leave the Big Apple in their '47 Chevy and purchase property in Jenkins County in the mid-'70s. Not letting his food skills go to waste, Chef Louis Charles, or LC as he was affectionately called, opened a grocery store.
We would go to Statesboro to the wholesale Ramsey, and we would actually pick up food to sell in the store, and my dad would let people have food on credit.
While he kept families fed, his wife owned a business at the home too, a cosmetologist at Marie's House of Style,
where he would pick up cars.
And when those other two businesses closed, Elsie started his junkyard.
Cornbread and greens.
Sheriff Robert Oglesby knew the man with the apron from his victories in the nearby Garfield Washpot Cookout Festival. And from time to time, he'd also send customers who needed car parts his way.
He was the man in Butts. He was the man everywhere he went. In town, I mean, he didn't meet strangers. He was a good-hearted man.
That kindness was sometimes taken advantage of by people, and his daughters told News Channel 6 just that back in 2013.
Because he said everybody would steal from him every day. Somebody would steal from him every day.
Days before all this took place, that he did get with me and tell me he wanted to talk with me on some items that were missing around the junkyard.
Sheriff Oglesby tells Cold Case Project those items were batteries and parts, but Burroughs never made it to his office to officially report the thefts.
He'd go to the gas station every day. He'd go to the Huddle House.
Added to that daily routine, Burroughs played his numbers each day at Brenson's BBQ on Highway 23, down the street from his home. And his daughters, who were living in the Atlanta area then, say he was seen doing most of these things the morning of the day he disappeared.
And we got the call in that Mr. Elsie had not been seen for a period of time. And when we come out here in this area, and his truck was pretty much right where it was.
Family members told us the truck's door was left open and the keys were still in the ignition.
He had saw his car and he thought my dad had jumped in the car with somebody else, so he sat there on the stoop and waited for about 30 minutes to an hour. He left, came back.
Another person saw him getting gas in Millen around 7 o'clock that morning. Law enforcement confirms once Burroughs returned from his morning routine, he went back home. And while he was talking with someone on the phone in the car, he pulled up and began arguing with someone unexpectedly at the junkyard. The phone disconnected without word of who or what he saw. That cell phone, though never recovered, pinged off a few cell phone towers near the home. His daughters believe he met foul play after seeing someone steal from his junkyard, and more than likely, he had a lot of cash on him.
And that weekend, we called different groups, and they come in, they brought dogs, and they brought people and we split up.
A lot of the evidence, if something was out there, you know, people had them trampled over.
The sheriff says those groups and law enforcement searched nearby and outside of Jenkins County. All that was located on the junkyard was a pair of reading glasses owned by Burroughs and a white shoe of his. There were also suspects at one point, but the sheriff feels because they have never been able to pinpoint what happened, the investigation, now in the hands of the GBI, remains stagnant.
We got description of cars, description of people, but no names. I mean, we run down a couple of cars, but nothing panned out on them.
He would draw the car up.
Most of the cars in the junkyard have been sold by his daughters, except for a few to maintain the face of the business. Green keeps several acres tidy while staying between Millen and Atlanta. She tells us a different theory.
He knew there were people that were trying to buy the property from him. They were trying to buy his business, and he kept telling them he was not going to sell because he didn't need the money. He didn't want to sell it, but he was being pressured in some way.
There's a $20,000 reward for anyone who can help bring Elsie Burrows home. Green says he will probably be wearing mechanic's clothing, blue khaki pants, a shirt, and boots. His daughters say he can be anywhere, but keeping a light spirit, they remain hopeful.
You see your dad again after 10 years. What are you going to say to him?
I'm probably gonna crack a joke. Dad, you have missed so much. There is so much, good and bad.
Hey, Daddy, where you been?
There's a bit of hope. Steverson tells us police have her DNA in the event that her father's case needs it. Now, anyone with any information about the disappearance of Elsie Burrows should contact the GBI at 912-871-1121. Next time on the Cold Case Project, we bring you to Richmond County, where 28-year-old Michael Tiny Frails was found dead in his apartment on Richmond Hill Road in June of 1992. What family and law enforcement need to get justice and close the case.